flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to the regular Lower Gwinnett Board of Supervisor meeting for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. I want to first start with announcements and presentations. We would like to recognize the Lower Gwinnett Township Police Department for their reaccreditation by the police chiefs of the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. The Lower Gwinnett first became accredited in April 2017, and they became reaccredited in April 2020. And this year, they were reaccredited for the second time in April 2023. There are over 1,200 law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania, with only 149 being accredited. There are over 400 standard bullet points that we need to demonstrate for compliance. And in April, 3 law enforcement professionals from the western part of the state looked at all of our policies, took a tour of the police station, saw static displays, and rode with officers while conducting interviews, all to confirm compliance with the best practices and standards in policing. So with that, I want to turn it over to our Chief of Police, Paul Kenny. You can do it.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is really not about me taking a recognition. Tonight is all about our officers, and our accreditation manager is Officer Tim Evard. Come on up, Tim. Tim has been with us for close to 22 years now. And he took on this task 8 years ago. Getting accredited the first time is the easy part. It's proving that you're in your compliance on your reaccreditations. So we've gone through 2 of them. So the one in April, they actually look back at the previous 3 years, 2021, 22, 2020, 21, 22, to make sure you're following all your guidelines all the time. It's not just the 3rd year. So they're constantly looking back, and you need proofs, 2 proofs for every general order, all the bullet points, everything. You got to show that you're doing these things. And as Danielle said, it's best practices of today. It is changed our department for the better. Tim is, yes, OCD, good word. And I'll tell you this, he's a pain with emails and following up. He reads reports. He tells guys what they need to include in reports. And he does it in a respectful way. And I think it says a lot that a lot of the guys came out tonight and ladies came out tonight to show their appreciation for what he does. He has made us a professional police department. And you're looked up to by other agencies that are accredited. It means a lot. It means a lot to our department. I know it means a tremendous amount to Tim. Tim goes around to other departments in the state and will do the checks on them. He'll read all their reports and make sure they're up to date with all their policies. So he's really dedicated to it. We are fortunate to have him with our department and doing the job he does. So Tim, I want to thank you very much. Everybody here, they're here because of you. We really do appreciate all the work that you put into it, and I really appreciate it. You do a great job. Back in April, or not, it wasn't in April. When was the accreditation meeting? A month ago? About a month ago, the state gets together for an accreditation meeting and they vote, and they actually talk to the 3 other law enforcement people. And, you know, it's not an easy thing. This is not easy. It's not easy to get a nice framed picture like this. A lot of work and a lot of time goes into it, and a lot of money. It's not cheap. So we appreciate the board, and I know you guys support it. I know Danielle, you support it 100%. It's a great thing. So thank you. We're gonna take a picture.
Thank you.
You can take it. Take it home with you, Tim. If I can steal another couple minutes of your meeting, I will also wanted to recognize some of the work that County Officer Henry did. We've been promoting Touch a Truck, which was this past Saturday. I'm not sure, I don't think anybody got there. But what I'd like to do before I talk about it, well, I will talk about it first. Townie, come on up here a minute. Townie is running our community response unit. And we all saw the signs on Bethlehem Pike for the past couple of weeks now of this Touch a Truck. Police work has changed. It has changed over the past, my career, for the better in a lot of ways. And we need to get out in the community. We need to have connections with people in the community, and it can't all take place in these four walls. And we've seen that in the first 6 months that we've been actively out there. We all had the example of, when we had Kona with cops up at Hunt Club, a president of a home association came up to us. Would have never done that down here. So this Touch a Truck thing, a lot of us had, not me, I fully supported you, Townie. I knew it was going to be crowded. There was a lot of questions about, is anybody going to show up? And would it be successful? And I know Townie had a couple meetings earlier in the year, and it was, let's just go big. And I have a 2-minute video. We're only going to show you like 30 seconds. If you can turn around, you'll see there's an aerial video that Ashpuns did for us. And I can talk while that's actually playing. We'll show about 30 seconds of it. So one of the things we did, we had a couple officers there, and they counted vehicles upon entry. And we had over 500 vehicles attend the event with kids and parents. It's a simulator vehicle. Kids can learn how to drive a dump truck, plane. We had emergency services there. We had a fire company, police, ambulance. Two food vendors, both sold out. We had more concern with the weather. But it just goes to show that. We did a really cool thing here. First hour was for sensory disabilities. Variety Club. We've hooked up with the Pennsylvania State Police, Camp Cadet. He'll be heading there in July, spending a week with kids at a camp. You want to go, Jim? No. But Anybody in this room that knows Townie, they know he's the right guy for this. His personality, his smile, his warmth, as welcoming as you can get. So it's just been phenomenal. I'm so happy with how it's running. And you deserve a ton of credit, my man. Thank you very much. No, we don't have a plaque for you, sorry. Okay, all right. You're done. Oh, yes. So the property owners like Beacon Properties allowed us to use the site across the street. It was packed and we need a lot of room. When you're bringing this type of equipment, you need a big space. You need an empty parking lot. So it was wonderful. It was a great event. And I'll just touch on one third thing, how proud I am of the guys and ladies that are in this room. They step up when we need them. And you all know what I'm talking about. When we need help in this department, we get it. From the board, from Mimi, and from the residents, and from the guys and girls in this room. Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Thank you. Just to extend a thank you to you as well. We appreciate all that you do for our community and exemplify how we are a community. So we appreciate it tremendously. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can be excused. Just a note for the minutes, the Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of personnel and litigation. With that, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Citizens' comments, concerns, questions for items not on the agenda. Are there any comments? Is there any online? No?
No.
Okay. Next up is the review of Resolution 2023-12, accepting the dedication of the infrastructure from the carriages of Lower Gwinnett. We have before us a memo that was included in our board packet. The carriages at Lower Gwinnett are 11-unit townhouse development approved in 2016. The project is complete. 18-month maintenance period is ended, and we are finalizing the closeout items. The resolution before the Board of Supervisors is to accept the offer of dedication of the public improvements described above in the deed of dedication. And we did receive that memo from our staff. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, accepting dedication of the infrastructure for the carriages at Lower Gwinnett. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the review of the Houston Creek flood study and recommendations and next steps. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our engineer, Jim Hirsch.
Thank you. Last time I was here in front of the board, we talked about this project at length, and the board had asked that I do some additional work and come back to you with some more information. The first request was to run an additional iteration of our HECRAS hydraulic analysis that combined two options. The first option, A, being removing or enlarging the opening at that driveway culvert at 446 Marion. And then option B being constructing a new basin at the corner of Houston and Knight Road. So we have an exhibit showing the floodplain with both of those combined, but the basic gist of it is that in the 100-year flood study, you're going to see about a 3 to 5 inch drop in floodplain elevation when you combine those two above what you would get by just implementing one or the other. So it is a pretty significant to combine them. And just like to give you the biggest drop in elevation in a 100-year storm for those is about 8 inches at a cross section that's like right in the middle of the study area.
This is the two recommendations? Or just
Yeah,
the one?
that's option A and B combined, A being the removal of that driveway or enlargement of that driveway bridge, and then B being the new basin at Houston and
And
Knight.
Knight, okay.
Mhm.
So with those two combined,
Yeah,
the drop is 3 to 5 inch.
3 to 5 inches more than it would be if you do one or the other.
I got you. Okay,
And total drop of about
8 inches.
8 inches in a 100-year flood event. And I mean, almost 2 feet in a 2-year event. So I mean, we discussed before, you're seeing larger drops in the smaller storms.
Mhm.
Agreed.
So is what we have before is the cost?
Yeah, so the second bit of information you wanted was some budget cost estimates for all the improvements. This first one is the new basin at Houston and Knight Road. Like I said previously, like nothing's been designed, so these are all just sort of budget numbers. There's a bunch of contingency in there. There's some soft cost associated with them. And then the other thing is that because this hasn't been designed, there is a potential opportunity to do some value engineering. Right now, this represents sort of the biggest thing you can put on that corner, but like we wouldn't be spending the money or clearing the trees if they didn't need to come down to get the reductions that we're talking about. So that's, total budget estimate is like just shy of $650,000 for that corner.
Just for the corner.
Yeah.
Just remind me, Jim, is the property where we'd be putting the additional basin owned by the township, or is that the school district?
It's owned by the school district.
Okay.
So I did one for pretty much every option. You just want to keep going through them. If you keep going to the next page, Jamie. Okay, so there's an existing basin at the corner on the school district's administration building property. This would be a cost to retrofit it. Like, currently, all it does is provide rate reduction. There's a concrete channel through it. So, to upgrade it to have a potential to reduce some volume and then also provide water quality. That's what this project cost is for. To be honest, this alone doesn't have much effect on the floodplain, but I was thinking if you coupled it with the other basin at the corner of Houston and Knight, then like you could potentially open yourself up for some more grant opportunities, ones that are only really focused on water quality. So that's just why we kind of talk about that. But this is not to actually make it any bigger. It's just to
Ensure
sort of
water
retrofit
quality.
it to more current standards to provide more than just a rate reduction.
So it wouldn't increase the volume that the basin could hold necessarily.
It doesn't, but there's an opportunity to potentially make it a little bit bigger. But I don't know that start to move it too far one way or the other, and it impacts the existing, the back of the elementary school where they have
Okay.
a playground and stuff,
Okay.
or where they have recess,
Right.
I should say.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
If you go to the next one, you get a chance, Jamie. Go ahead. Jesse.
Jim, have you been talking to the school board or the administrators about this?
We had a meeting with an administration official at the end of last year, but before we brought all these recommendations forward to the board. I mean, that one person has, no ability to say yes or no, but I think the general gist of the conversations have been that if some sort of partnership, if it was on land that they weren't currently using or anticipate using, that would be an open discussion at least.
Okay, but the understanding would be that the township would bear the cost of this, or would it be half and half?
I don't know what the cost sharing would be, but what I would envision for a bulk of these improvements is that the township would be the applicant on a grant, which are generally 80% funded by the grant, 20% funded by a match. How
Okay.
that match gets made up is up in the air. A lot of grants will allow you to count the value of the land as a match. So in that case, potentially the value of that 2 acres on the corner
Mhm.
is the 20% that you need, and you can kind of start to spin it together that way.
Okay.
This one is the option we talked about where we sort of enlarge the area behind the dam, modify the control structure on the dam. It's the largest cost because it's honestly moving the largest amount of earth. It's clearing 4 acres. It's bulk excavation. And so, I mean, you're over $1 million there. I think that we talked about that giving you the largest reduction in the floodplain, but like at the end
It
of the
still
day,
doesn't get us to nothing.
yeah, it still doesn't remove everyone from the floodplain. And when you're looking at like that option that we just talked about, where it's A and B together, yeah, you could reduce the floodplain by maybe 4 more inches if you did this too. But
So for
It's-
$1,200,000, we're only going to reduce it by 4 more inches.
yeah, well, what I had talked before about what the reductions were if they were all combined together. And at best, it's 1.5 feet in the 100-year storm. And this one, so yeah, I mean, you're getting like 6 or 7 more inches.
So I'm a little unclear about your measurement. So when you say a reduction of 1 foot, you mean the depth of the water
that's
or
what-
the edges? of
No,
it?
no. The depth of the water
At what point?
at various, if you want to, can you bring up one of the exhibits, the floodplain ones? It doesn't matter which one.
The one you sent today.
Yeah, that's fine. So like the study has different cross sections, all cut through. No, it's okay. Different cross sections cut through the floodplain. And at each cross section, in different iterations of storms, there's a depth of water. This outside line here, magenta, represents the extent of a 2-year flood in an existing condition. This red line here is the extent of an existing flood in a proposed condition. So this entire area here has been removed in the proposed condition for this situation. So like post improvement, the limit of the water is this red line. Pre-improvement, the limit of the water is the magenta line. The reduction that I'm talking about depth wise is say 4 inches, but then the topography of this area here is what lends, like this is 4 inches higher than that from a grade standpoint.
Yeah, I got it. But so can you put that in terms of less house flooding? How much less house flooding?
It's not really a whole lot of less house flooding because at the end of the day, can you page down a little bit, Jamie?
You're still going to get a flood.
Yeah, well, so like this is the extent of the 100-year floodplain line when it's calculated based on the analysis. There's nothing that is going to be done to move this line on the backside of those houses. This is Brookside here.
There's really nothing that you can, certain houses, there's nothing that you, especially the ones that are closer to where the dam is, there's no amount of remediation that's actually going to prevent them from being caught in a 100-year flood.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
yes, but no, what I was going to say was the
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 calculation.
floodplain analysis shows that the most affected houses are these ones down here in the mid block of,
Mhm.
if you go up towards the dam, I mean, there's obviously no houses on the north side of Night, but then these ones that are on the corner, yeah, no,
There's nothing
you're
we
right.
can
There's
do.
nothing.
Yeah. There's no remediation to address those, but to reduce it for the rest of the floodplain.
That's why I started to look, we started looking at the 100-year flood, and it's just so much water, and the benefit that you get is kind of small,
It's minimal.
right? So then that's why we started to analyze the smaller storms, because
2 years.
those are the ones that you're going to see more frequently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that you can actually have a measurable impact on.
So the two. Well, let's just talk about the dam. So in the dam, the reduction in a 100-year flood is 4 inches, or is that the 2-year?
4 additional inches, I think.
4 additional inches. So what's the
Mhm.
totality, I guess, of just the dam? I'm sorry.
I have it all. I just got to pull it up.
Like if we only did the
If we
dam.
only did the dam.
If you only did the dam, the highest reductions are 6 inches.
6 inches. Okay. And that's the 100-year, or is that the 2-year?
That's in a 100-year.
So in the 2-year, what does that look like? Like,
13 inches.
okay, because I mean, that's really the appreciable. That's where you see a big difference. And then that's when the most storms come, right? I mean, we just don't want Brookside flooding like,
I mean, without a doubt,
Every
that's where you're
rainstorm.
going to get the most reductions.
So the issue really is in a 100-year flood.
There's not enough, in a 100-year flood, there's not enough available,
It's the volume
there's
of
not enough
water.
available space upstream
Yeah.
to detain enough water
For it to.
for
prevent-
it to matter,
Okay.
or not matter, but like
For it to not cause destruction.
for all the flow to be contained within the stream.
Okay. But the 2-year flood, which is the common normal storms that you see in the spring and summer,
Yeah,
can
and
have
when,
reduction with these remediation.
yes, and
efforts.
when you look at this, it kind of illustrates that exactly. Like this magenta line, existing 2-year iteration, it's completely out into Brookside. Proposed over here, it's not out into Brookside.
And so the proposed is.
Right, but just at that little chunk. Because downstream, it's the exact same, the magenta. the
But it's
red
in
line.
their-
No, it
it's
moves
in
Yeah,
their
but
backyard.
it's not in the street.
in their
Oh,
backyard.
in the
yeah,
downstream
I'm
situation.
So, but tell us just for clarity, the red line includes what remediation?
That red line that's up there is widening the obstruction. That's the driveway at
Okay.
446 Marion.
446 Marion, so it's
Yeah.
removing that
Yep,
driveway.
and building a basin on the corner
Knight and
of
Houston.
Knight and Houston.
Okay,
So just those two things.
can get us out of flooding in the street and can get
In a 2-year storm.
in a
And did we
2-year.
get the pricing on the?
Yeah, we didn't get there. We
the
switched
fourth,
gears.
one more, right? For
Yeah,
About $2 million.
we were at the,
We did all.
we're at the dam.
Yeah.
The last thing is the addressing that culvert driveway.
bridge?
Driveway, yeah.
Driveway bridge, yeah.
Mhm. So like all these prices are assuming that like we would have to go to someone, I mean, if the township were to undertake the work, they have to go to public bid and that everything would be done by a contractor that would be the low bidder. There is an opportunity probably to, if the township were to undertake this, to utilize public works and save on labor costs. So this is a worst case
Yeah.
scenario. But like, it is gonna be $80,000 to have a 3x5 box culvert, 12 feet wide, fabricated and delivered to the site. Like I feel very,
Regardless of who does.
I
the
feel
work.
very good about that number.
Yeah.
We had similar costs a year and a half ago, and I inflated them a little bit for inflation.
Okay,
Right.
so so is the prioritization of the remediation that you're recommending the ones that include the red line on that aerial?
Yeah, I
view?
think what we talked about before was trying to sort of break this off into something that can be tackled.
Mhm.
And the Houston Knight Road Basin, potentially some kind of retrofit, those lump together real well for a grant opportunity. So I think those make a lot of sense. to start with. I think that the dam, for a lot of reasons, is a very heavy lift and something that you would kind of, you'd want to go back to should you not be getting the benefit that you want from the first two.
Well, don't we also want to do this last one to get the, I mean, isn't the last one sort of a priority too? To get the magenta line into the red line?
Yeah, yeah. And
So I mean, if we. take-
honestly, in a lot of respects, I think that
So it's those three.
figuring that out is probably your first
So
thing.
basically $900,000 for 1, 2, and 4,
Yes.
worst case scenario.
Those would be the priority to start with.
Mhm.
And maybe the bridge being the first and then the other two in combination.
You think try to get a grant for 1 and
One and two.
1 and 2?
I don't think there's a lot of grants available for replacing that driveway
No.
bridge
No, no,
on
no, we're just
private
talking about one
property.
and two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but 1 and 2, you start looking for a grant, that might not be a bad idea.
Certainly, yeah. And I think the sooner you kind of start the conversation with the school district, the more you'll know about kind of everyone's sort of skin in the game, and we can start to look at what grants are available.
I'm sorry, Jim, but what was the cost for the basin on Knight and Houston?
It was $640,000.
640. Okay.
Are there any additional questions from the board?
Just as the final point, you're suggesting the driveway replacement and the basin are what you would recommend for a grant application to couple those two?
No, the new basin and retrofitting the existing basin that's on the administration building property would be grant eligible in my eyes. I mean, you could try to lump it all together, but I'm not sure how they'd feel about that.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? You just come up and say your name and address.
Hi, my name is Bill Murray. I live at 413 Brookside Avenue. I'd first like to thank Danielle for getting the funding for the study and Jim for his report. It's the first step in, like I said, a long journey. I passed out some suggestions that we might have to mitigate some of the flooding on Brookside Avenue. I bike ride along Route 202 and I see these metal cages all along the highway there. And they seem to be pretty effective to keep the debris and the logs from clogging up the cobalts. So that's one of our suggestions. Another neighbor suggested that I don't know if this is feasible to raise the curb height of the different streets. I know Francis is getting a lot of the flood waters coming down and then it goes into the backyards of Brookside. So that's just a thought. I don't know if it's feasible, but that's a proposal. And also there's a lower level playing field in the school district. Now, I don't know if that could be used as a retention basin or for the dam or what, and I don't know where it would drain out since it's lower there, and I don't want to affect Montgomery Avenue or Knight Road either, so, but it's just a thought that, a suggestion that we came up with. So I hope you can consider these proposals, and we're trying to, also the email addresses, if you could send us a email when the next study is going to be done or the funding is approved or what have you, because it was a long time in the taken. This study took over a year to complete. And so we didn't know when it was going to be. And I know the agenda is produced a day or two before the board meeting. So it's hard to say, you know, when are we going to attend or who can we inform the residents? So it's, I think, not a heavy lift to notify the people on that list there to let them know of the whatever's occurring on the Brookside Avenue's flooding issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Okay.
Jim, did you want to talk about, I know that you had mentioned in the original presentation about curbing and some of the remediation of Francis Avenue with the paving.
Yeah, so we're aware of the issue with stormwater coming through the front yards of Francis, through their backyards, and then through into the backside of Brookside residents. I think potentially part of that issue was sort of exacerbated by the repaving of the intersection of Knight and Francis. The township paved or had a contractor pave Knight Road a number of years ago, but then after that is when there were some water main breaks in the area. And when the water company dug up the intersection of Francis and Knight, there's some thought that like potentially the crown of the road was sort of lost. And so like water that was supposed to and always did go all the way down Knight and continue towards the creek is now making that turn onto Francis and sort of adding more water to Francis than there was. So we didn't talk about that recommendation tonight, but the previous presentations, we did talk about it. And we want to do a survey of the intersection of Knight and Francis and see if some reprofiling of that intersection could sort of take the situation and make it what it was historically and not so much what it has been in the last number of years.
Thanks, Jim.
I think that covered it,
Yeah,
right?
thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you. Are there any additional questions from the public? Anybody
Jim,
on-
are these suggestions, additional ideas beyond what you had already recommended?
I just got them a couple minutes ago. I didn't have a chance to look through them, but what he was mentioning about the cages, I
you
think
made- You did talk about that.
It's a septic issue though, right? I mean, we,
there is one that exists in the culvert that goes underneath the septic tracks at Ambler Yards. I
And-
think that another recommendation we talked about before was the township to engage with PennDOT because PennDOT owns that culvert at Spring Garden. So I could envision a similar situation upstream at that culvert to kind of make sure that debris doesn't get into there. I don't know that we have really had a lot of issues upstream. I think if that driveway culvert at Marion is opened up a little bit, then it wouldn't trap stuff like it's trapping it now.
Yeah.
I'll take it to him.
Back in 2004, with Hurricane Jean, the Knight Road, Brookside Culvert got jammed up with debris and logs, and that road was closed. It was impassable. So that's why my thought for the Brookside and Knight Road culvert, maybe putting a cage there, and also the one down at Spring Garden to put one there too, to prevent the overflow into the Ambler Yards parking lot there. So they were just, some of our thoughts, and it's, you can configure that thing any way you want, the shape, size, and form, and I don't think it'd be that cost that much, but it's just our suggestion.
Okay, it's definitely something we can take a look at. And the township owns that culvert at Knight Road. So, it would be kind of up to the board, up to Fred. I mean, I don't know how, but we
Do
can certainly
the
look at it.
cages in any way restrict water? They don't restrict water flow in any way, do they?
It would restrict it a little bit, but I don't know that it would make that much of a difference. It's a situation where you have to maintain it, or else it's just going to get like clogged up with stuff anyways.
Okay. And then I think the other recommendation that you shared with us, Mr. Murray, is in our property. It is the school district's property, but I mean, I'm not saying that it's not a good recommendation, it's just we don't own it.
For the school district, and hopefully they'll cooperate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Hirsch. Okay, so next up, we have Resolution 2023-13 designating June as Pride Month in Lower Gwinnett Township. The resolution of Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors would be to declare June to be the LGBT Pride Month and directing staff to fly the rainbow pride flag throughout the month of June at Veterans Park. The resolution was provided in our manager's report. This is consistent with the resolution that we did pass last year. The only difference, I believe, is that this doesn't have an end date for this year. It would recognize June moving forward as Pride Month. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Are there any, do you have anything additional to share? Neil?
Unless you want me to.
I mean, feel free if there's anything that you would like to add. I think it's pretty straightforward, but
It's very straightforward, and I think this is best expressed in the resolution where it says the township wishes to communicate. So this is township messaging. This is not third-party messaging that's being solicited. The township wishes to communicate its support for inclusivity, equality, and respect in our township. And that's the message. I don't want to speak for everybody on the board, but to me, that's the message that's being conveyed here. It's government speech. It's not subject to the same limitations as the First Amendment when government is trying to regulate speech. This is government actually performing speech and delivering a message, and I would say a very important message to everyone in the community. And that's the distinction really between this situation and what some people have referenced, which is the case out of the city of Boston, where they just solicited third-party flags and flew them every day until they found one they didn't like, and they said, we're rejecting this. But this is clearly permissible under the law, and I don't really have anything more to say than that.
thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'll just be brief because my approach to this and my viewpoint of this is pretty simple. I do not think raising this particular flag or any other flag is a signal of inclusivity. I think it is the exact opposite. It excludes everybody else who is not in a part of that community group or whatever you want to call it, to which that flag is identified to. And in my opinion, the American flag is the most inclusive flag on the planet and includes everybody, national origin, race, gender, etc. This is the most inclusive flag on the planet, and I think this gesture is just that, a gesture, and really not necessary, and ultimately is more divisive than it is unifying.
Any additional comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Yes. You just have to come up and state your name and your address.
My name is Joan Zeller. I live on Brookside Avenue. I lived in Lower Gwinnett for 41 years. I don't find the American flag that inclusive. I don't know, look at slavery as one example. But I must say that unfortunately, in the last number of years, I have felt, I don't know, a rising of hatred of others. A lot. And, you know, I just think, I look at the flag and really it's a rainbow. And what small child to anybody who likes colors can't look at that and smile. And to think, I include everybody. I don't hate people. I don't look at them as others. You know, it's an inclusive thing. And I can't think of anything nicer. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody additional? You just come up and just state your name and your address. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sandy Silbigger and I live at 416 Brookside. And I'm here to tell you about our little corner of Lower Gwinnett Township. We're a very diverse street and the flag to me represents love. And I just don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to fly a flag that represents love and inclusivity. There is nothing that any of our neighbors wouldn't do for each other. And we have anybody on that rainbow flag you can think of, we have on our street. So I just think I'm proud to be in a township that flies this flag and includes everyone and shows that we love and care about not just our own group, but all groups. And the people that are represented on that flag are good people. They're good and loving people, and they deserve to be represented, just like we all deserve to be represented with the American flag. It's 1 month, and it's a month that we say, hey, our township loves everybody, and we support you. I think it's a loud and clear sign that we support all our residents, and I don't see why we wouldn't. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Dooley, and I live on Penland Pike, right around the corner. I've lived in this township for over 40 years also. I agree with Ms. Hunziker here. I think the American flag speaks for everybody. I think the Veterans Memorial speaks for veterans. And I think specifically picking out little segments of society does nothing but divide us. And I think what we need is general inclusivity. Veterans are veterans, no matter whether they're purple, pink, green, it doesn't matter. There are veterans and we honor them because without them, our country wouldn't exist. We would have no protection. We need them. And we honor what they do. The fact that they are willing to put their lives on the line to protect us and to preserve the freedoms in our society, that's what we want to honor. And I don't think that putting any other kind of a flag that honors any specific group, there are a million of specific groups that we all fall into. But what we want is we want more inclusivity in general, the whole country, everybody, all veterans, not just gay veterans, all veterans. And that's my personal opinion. And I don't think we need to make a big deal of it, but I just don't feel that it's appropriate to do that in our Veterans Park. If you want to put it on your own, front yard, fine. But I don't think it's appropriate to do it in this venue. Thank you.
Is there anyone, you just have to come up and state your name and your address.
Yes, James Kernahan. I don't live in a township, and I'm the individual that kind of drove some opposition to this online posting. The basis of the opposition was that I don't think that flag, the pride flag, should be flown at the Veterans Memorial. The intention of the memorial is to recognize the sacrifices of the veterans. All colors, all religions, all sexual preferences, not being excluded by one flag. My comment to Kathy during that exchange was that if the township wants to do this raising of a flag, put it on the township property. Raise it with the other flags that you have here. You have a Commonwealth flag, you have a United States flag, you might have a township flag. That's where it should be. And I'll take the oxygen right out of the room. Next time a soldier comes home, I'd like you to comment me, so you can see the parents who get that flag at the end of the day, and you can recognize what their sacrifice is, okay? No, I heard your comment, I heard your comment, I heard your comment, I heard your comment. I'm gonna tell you this, I heard your comment, it was disparaging. Two is, I come from a long history of soldiers. My great-grandfather, my father, my grandfather, my two brothers, and myself. Come from a line of law enforcement. My grandfather, Philly PD, my father, and my two brothers and myself, okay? You don't serve based on sexuality. You serve the people, okay? And here they served everyone. So to sit here and try to raise a flag that calls out one particular sexual preference, I think it's shameful to their memories. And if the LGBT community wants to jump on top of me, I'll suck the air right out of the room. My sister's 18 years my junior. She's gay and she's married. So I do know, I do understand. So for me, I think the flag should be hung here at the township. No opposition to that whatsoever. It still gets across your message of inclusivity and diversity and equity and every other adjective you want to use. But that over there is for one particular reason, Veterans Memorial. I understand Kathy might have served. I thank her for her service, as my service and a long history of my family service. So for me, I was never in the opposition of the flag being flown. I just have opposition of it being flown there. You guys want to celebrate your month here, your month there, your month there for this and that, everything else? Put it here on the township property. What's next? Arlington? Veterans Memorial? The Vietnam Memorial? You're gonna see the flag down there too? It'll never happen. But we can compromise. And I think the township should make a compromise and make a redirect the decision, and maybe hang it here, celebrate whatever they want. But keep that sacred, because you know what? If you haven't known someone that was killed in combat, okay, then you understand what the flag is. When you're in law enforcement, you take a law enforcement creed. Been there, done that. Been in the service, take the creed, Constitution, been there, done that. So I kind of have an idea what it's about. That's all I have to say. It was never in opposition of the flag in general, just its placement. That's it.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I just wanted to give, I guess, a little back story, because I think not being from our township, you might not be privy to the history of how it got to be there. And this was through a conversation with previous board members who's no longer on our board, and discussions about raising the pride flag. And that specific board member wanted it to not be raised at the township, and asked, could there be an alternative place? And the alternative place was the park. It is our Veterans Park. And that is the place where we have multiple flagpoles, and it is where we hang our township flag. And it is where we hang flags where we're giving speech. So I don't know if you drove past it today, but as of right now today, there is the Tree City flag underneath our township flag. Unfortunately, at our township building, we don't have a multitude of flagpoles that give us the option. That is something that potentially we could pursue in the future. But as it stands right now, that place and that selection of that location was at the request of a previous supervisor.
No, that was brought up in the exchange with Kathy. You know, of course, she called out this as being an R board, an E board. I didn't even know what she was referring to initially. Okay, until the light bulb went off.
I don't know.
And then she brought up that, she was talking about a Republican board and it was a Democrat board. That's what she was speaking of. So she brought politics into it. And what I said to her was, I didn't even recognize that other flag. And I said, listen, that's a great flag. It's an initiative that the township took up. Put that one over here too. Doesn't cost much of the erected flag. People do it at their houses. I just saw $1.2 million being put in here. It's gonna cost you 30, 20 grand. So for me, it's like, if you want to have a celebratory flagpole for all these events you want to do, then put one up. But let's keep their honor and their name and their sacrifices more than most of the people in this room know.
Are there any additional comments? You just come up and state your name and your address.
I'm Joyce Keller. I'm a resident of Whippane Township. My son is in Wissahickon High School, and I'd like to speak. And I'd like to speak about the LGBTQ flag. The LGBTQ community and individuals are entitled to the same fundamental human rights as any other person. International frameworks such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes and protects rights of all individuals, including the LGBTQ plus community. This framework sets up the principles of equality, non-discrimination, and freedom for all people, and affirming that the LGBTQ rights are human rights. These rights include the right to life, liberty, freedom of expression, freedom from discrimination, and the right to participate fully and securely in our society. And protecting LGBTQ rights is a crucial step towards progress and social change. It's challenging existing norms and prejudice, promotes inclusivity and diversity, and fosters a more accepting society. By safeguarding our LGBTQ community, we are also creating a path for further advancements in equality and justice for all. We must ensure that all individuals are treated with dignity and equality. And when we do this, we combat discrimination, not encouraging it. The LGBTQ plus community faces constant intolerance. They may experience social exclusion, bullying within schools, harassment, violence, unequal treatment regarding healthcare, adoption, and marriage. Raising the pride flag is a powerful symbol of pride, resilience, and visibility. And when we raise a pride flag, it shows support and recognition for the LGBTQ plus community, signaling acceptance. It conveys that the LGBTQ plus community is seen, it is valued, and it is celebrated, creating a sense of belonging and empowerment. The pride flag is recognized throughout the world, and seeing the flag displayed in a public space, such as a government building, schools, businesses, and community centers, can provide a sense of safety and approval. The pride flag serves as a visual reminder of the diversity within LGBTQ communities and the ongoing struggles for equality for all people. This visibility helps challenge stereotypes, myths, and prejudice, promoting and understanding empathy among a broader society. The pride flag celebrates the LGBTQ plus identities and contributions. By raising the flag, individuals can celebrate the achievements and resilience of such a wonderful community. It honors their culture, history, and contributions to society. It creates positive and affirmative atmosphere that encourages LGBTQ plus individuals to express themselves authentically and without fear of judgment. And that is what we all want, to be ourselves without fear of being judged. It conveys that the LGBTQ plus rights are integral to the diverse and equitable community. By displaying the flag, organizations and communities actively foster an environment where everyone feels valued and respected for who they are. And finally, many countries are signatories to international human rights agreements, the United States being one of them, that explicitly protects individuals from discriminations based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Protecting LGBTQ plus rights, which includes putting up a flag, is ensuring that we are in compliance with these obligations, and it strengthens the country's reputation as a human rights defender. We must always strive to do what is right, and what is right is raising the flag in Lower Gwinnett. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Just state your name and your address.
We all know who he is.
We're being consistent, Kathy.
My name is Harry Hellerman. I live at 100 Coventry Lane. I'm also a Vietnam veteran a Vietnam era veteran. And my feeling is that there is room for the pride flag at that park.
Are there any additional comments? Just come up and state your name and your address.
My name is Jennifer. I'm not from from the township, but I'm here in support of raising the flag. I just think that we should all respect everyone. It doesn't matter if you're not gay or not, but just give the people the respect that they need and they want. And if you don't like it, you don't have to look at it, but it's for the people who want to be represented. And I'm just here to support them.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, we have before us the resolution 20.
If I could just
Oh, go ahead.
make a comment or a suggestion, based on the two of the comments we had here tonight about their opinion that Veterans Park is not a suitable venue to raise the flag. I know we got one similar email in our collective box. I didn't access the rest of those emails. I don't know what they said, but apparently there's a sentiment out there about the proper place to raise this flag. So I would ask my fellow supervisors, can we consider making a compromise, as the gentleman suggested, and not placing the flag at Veterans Memorial Park and place it somewhere else? Not a big deal, dig a hole in the ground and put up a pole. And that way, compromise is what we should be doing as a government. And I think that is an easy one. And I certainly want to acknowledge and act on these sentiments that were expressed here, and I imagine are felt by other veterans and people who aren't veterans regarding placing this flag at Veterans Park.
Just to be clear, before us is the resolution to just designate June as Pride Month. But I mean, we can have comments on additional things as well. Are there any additional comments?
With respect to it flying at Veterans Park, and I know you're not from the township, and I do thank you for your service. If you're familiar with the park, there's a beautiful Veterans Memorial sort of tucked in the center of the park. At the end of the park. Okay. I understand, but you mentioned other flags. Okay. So there's a memorial in the middle of the park, and then there's 3 flagpoles sort of at the entrance of our township, right? There's a beautiful wall that says Lower Gwinnett Township. There's 3 flagpoles. We've got the American flag, we've got the state flag, and we've got the township flag. And underneath the township flag, we have a Tree City flag. We're not proposing putting the pride flag in place of or on top of or over the Veterans Memorial. We are proposing putting the pride flag in place of the Tree City flag for a month. The pride flag, I'm not sure if you know, was actually designed by a veteran. So was a transgender flag. I think that speaks volumes to what our vets feel about the flag. It should embrace everybody. And I long for the day where we don't have to raise a pride flag, where maybe in this country, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels seen, everybody feels accepted for who they are. At the moment, though, that's not the case, unfortunately. Members of the LGBTQ community couldn't get married until, what, 9 years ago in this country? They couldn't openly serve in the military until 11 years ago. I think it was 2011 when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So right now, I think the VFW, which does celebrate Pride Month, they put an acknowledgement out on their website, and they thank LGBTQ veterans for their service, and they acknowledge all members of the LGBTQ community and celebrate the month. They, I believe, estimate that there are currently 1 million LGBTQ veterans in the US. Now, how do we know historically how many there were? Because Don't Ask, Don't Tell until the past, 11 years ago. So a lot of LGBTQ veterans exist and did exist and were asked not to sort of be who they were to serve in the military until very recently. I think 5% of current active service members are members of the community. I think, I thank our veterans for our service and I honor our veterans. I have veterans in my family. I have active military friends. You know, our veterans went overseas and fought for, you know, the ideals of this country, right? That everybody, all men are created equal, that we all deserve the same liberties and freedoms and justice for all. I think that includes members of the LGBTQ community, and they haven't yet sort of reached that status. So the way I see the pride flag is not just being divisive. It's not, you know, only recognizing one group of people. It's a statement, as it says in our resolution, that, you know, we celebrate diversity. We celebrate all members of our community, and we want everyone to feel like they're welcome here. So I don't think it puts shame on veterans. And I think a lot of veterans would disagree with that. And like I said, we are not taking away from the service that our veterans have provided. And we're not taking down a veteran flag or the American flag or covering up the memorial. We are just hanging an additional flag underneath the township flag. It sort of says all are welcome here for the month of June. So I think maybe in the future, if there's room for, you know, another flagpole and we're going to move all of the flags somewhere else, you know, that's not really before us right now. But I think if we're considering where to hang it and passing this resolution, you know, I would move to accept the resolution as is.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you so much. Next up, we have the discussion about our historical marker programs. There was a memo that was included in our board packet. The recommended action for the was from the Historical Advisory Committee, and they gave us a draft of the historical marker programs. Those recommendations include multitude of attachments, and we did table this item from our last meeting so that all members of the board were present. The background and the demonstration of need were provided on behalf of the chair, Matt Metcalf, who is here for questions. Are there any questions from the board? Sir?
I'm good. What do you mean? I read the memo.
You don't have any questions?
I read the memo, I read the ordinance.
Are there any
All right.
additional questions from the board?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Matt.
Danielle, if I could just,
But are we getting a recommendation from? our
Well, so
historical-
we're not going to the advertising yet. We're still just discussing the marker program. So the marker program outlined guidelines around eligibility, the mission, the program administration, as well as submissions. Gave it additional information around the documentation, the review process, installation, maintenance. Was a very thorough presentation that I appreciated tremendously. Is there anything additional you wanted to add, Mimi? Okay, so this discussion is just around the program and its guidelines. If there's no questions, are there any questions from the public? It would be hard for you to have questions without access, but this information was provided on our website. So if you did review the packet prior to the meeting and had any questions, please feel free to come forward. Do you want to explain the program a little bit, Matt, since you're here?
Yeah. Hi, I guess I'll face this way. All right. My name is Matt Metcalf. I'm the chair of the Historical Advisory Committee for this year. We were tasked in 2022 with a bunch of things to consider regarding the history of Lower Gwinnett Township. And to that end, one of the things that was kind of thrown out as an idea was to recognize different places with historical value to our community. And so we've sort of put this one up front as something that we thought is relatively innocuous and is something that a lot of people could get behind and support, and something that's responsive to requests by the community as well. So in short, the Lower Gwinnett Township Historical Marker Program would invite, it would solicit from the community different ideas for markers, which can include people, places, events, innovations, historic landscapes, those kinds of things. And if people might be familiar with the large blue and yellow state marker signs, This is not that. This is at the local level, but it's in that same idea. The state historical marker program only recognizes things that are important at the state level, and there are things that and places that are and people that are important to Lower Gwinnett Township that this program would thus be able to recognize through the signage. We outlined a suggested process that would involve basically people would write, we're thinking probably a page of information specifically, why is this, why are you nominating this particular event? What's the importance to the community? Why should we bring this recommendation to the Board of Supervisors? And we would ask that it be, there's research that's involved, like actual, citations and things like that. So there's actual research that's been done. Brought before us, we would review and make a recommendation, either send it back to people to say, maybe we can tighten this up a little bit. And there's not a lot of room on the signs, right? So we're looking at like 100 words or something. So we have to, keep that pretty tight. So the idea would be we can work with the folks to, if we think this is good and want to recommend it to the board, then we would tighten that up with them to bring that forward. And ultimately, the Board of Supervisors would be the ones to make the final decision about whether or not it was appropriate to put signage there.
What would be the consequence of recognizing something in the historical market? Would there be any consequence to, say you recognize a building, become historical from a preservation perspective?
No, not at all. It's simply a recognition program. There's no impact on property, ownership or restrictions or anything of that nature.
Is there any sort of objective criteria on whether something is historical or not historical, or? Yeah,
there is. In part, but there's a lot of different kinds of programs. So let me pull up some of the examples. Basically, we want to see research that's you never know what's going to come up, right? If someone invented a popcorn popping machine here, someone might suggest that's a great idea. And it might be a historic building, right? People have talked about the historic folk mansion that was taken down and was an important landmark in the community. So there's no way to know what could potentially come up, but we did write in here that there would be some specifics. And let me, so specific eligibility criteria directly connected to local history, specifically Gwinnett Township or modern day Lower Gwinnett Township, right? Because we were all one township previously. Should reference an event, place, innovation, legend, person or group or organization, should have a significant impact on its time and or the present, or contributed significantly to regional, state, or national history with a specific connection to Lower Gwinnett Township, and then should be sufficiently in the past enough that enough time has elapsed that we can say that actually was historic. Now, not something that's really immediate, but has had a little time to marinate. So there are a couple of criteria for that, but not overly restrictive as best as I can recommend.
I've asked this question a bunch, so I'm going to ask you, what makes something historic?
I think it depends on who's writing the nomination. If you're looking at buildings, right, and this is not specifically buildings, but if you were looking at the National Register, there are various criteria, right? So age, significance, and integrity of the building. So that's all pretty much described and fleshed out. This is something that's a little broader. And so we tried to write up specifics so that there would be, for example, it's something that happened 40 years in the past. Significant, something that someone believes should be should be recognized as part of our township's history. For a marker program, it's pretty broad. We can be more specific.
No, I didn't necessarily mean with regard to the marker program. I just meant generally what makes something historic. And again, I understand not everything is a math equation, but it doesn't seem like there's much objective criteria. It has to be old, but doesn't have to be too old, but it can't be too new, right? I mean, that doesn't really
Right.
say much of anything.
Right.
Maybe 40 years is enough. I mean, there's a famous Supreme Court case about pornography when the justice says
Gonna say that.
he would know it when he sees it. I mean, is it sort of like that? I know if something's historic when I see it.
Well, yeah,
I'm curious because we talk a lot about
Yeah.
historic places in this township, and
Yeah.
it's really hard if there's no definition.
So I think that's why in the case of things like that are National Register nominated or specifically historic preservation related, that's where you get age, integrity, and significance, where those things are spelled out in a pretty significant level of detail. So I think that's why in things that could potentially conflict with property rights or other hot buttons issues in a place, that's why things get really specific there. The historical marker idea is that it's kind of upbeat and fun. So if there's, someone that invented the popcorn machine, a popcorn popper, hey, we could do something like that, or something more serious like Folk Mansion or other places, right? Like, so there's been talk about what could we do about the Gwynedd School, for example. Okay, that's a building that no longer exists, that was significant in our community more broadly. So signage would, just say, what is this place, or what was this place, and what was here?
Penland School. I think you said- I
Penland,
think you said
yes, I'm
Gwynedd
sorry, I have
School.
Gwynedd School on the
School's-
mind for other,
Gwynedd
that's
School's
another
still
place.
there?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Penland School. Yeah.
Which is a great segue into my question, and I don't know who answered it, but we had Mina Taylor come to our meetings multiple times advocating for these markers for Penland, not only Penland.
Yeah, she came to the committee too. Yep.
Oh, she did?
Mhm.
Okay. So I guess my question is, what?
So that's the next thing on the agenda. That's the next thing on
Well,
the
so
agenda.
I think they're gonna propose like an application,
Yes.
and there would be I think it's described in the program, but
Yeah.
they would put forth, an application for residents to, and it hasn't been fleshed out yet, but that for residents to fill out, or non-residents, anyone who wants there to be, so Carmina could fill something out, and then it would be considered by,
What was very evident from her that she felt her wishes here, given the aging of the population out in Penland, and I think there's a significant anniversary of something or other.
Oh, yes, Reverend Kwan was there, yes.
135th
Yeah, the
anniversary
Bethlehem
of
Baptist Church is celebrating its 135th in October. Reverend Kwan did come to our most recent meeting, looking for an update on where things were, because I think his staff is eager to apply for something of that nature too.
Thank you.
Have you made decisions yet on, I think in our packet, there were different examples of the signs. Has the committee decided on how to go with that?
Those were from staff, Tessie. That was some samples I think that Fred had found. The committee didn't propose a design.
So our staff is working on.
Yeah, okay. I know Fred had shared some designs, but I thought maybe in the meantime, this committee had made some progress on that.
No, staff is going to take care of that.
Okay.
Part of it.
The committee will weigh in.
I think the committee members would like to chip in on that. But that hasn't, the first step in our mind was getting it to you all to say, hey, this is a good idea, or we don't like this. And then we can go to some of the specifics about, this is what we would put on the form, or if we need additional details, a certain level of research or an appeal process that we could then go from there to incorporate that.
I think Jamie's putting on the screen the different options, or some of the different options that were included in our manager's packet. Are there any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys.
They're fun. I'm that person who drives to go look at them. So, yeah.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Matt.
Matt,
Okay,
for coming
thank you.
and talking to us at our meeting. We appreciate it tremendously. So next up, we have the ordinance establishing the Lower Gwinnett Township historical marker program. This is just to authorize the advertisement of the ordinance. It was included in our manager's packet. I'm not going to read the ordinance in its entirety, but it's pursuant to section 1506 of the second class township code. The Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors will make and adopt any ordinance. We are adding a new chapter 1046 to hereby add the title 4 of the code of Lower Gwinnett Township to be entitled Historic Markers Program. It goes through the establishment of the program, the repealer, severability clause, and the effective date. Are there any questions about the ordinance?
I do have one question. I thought,
I have to turn it over to our solicitor first.
I'm sorry, jumping the gun. Sorry, Neil.
No, go right ahead.
I wanted to ask about whether I thought we were going to amend the ordinance or whether we need to amend. Okay. Go ahead, Neil. Mike just corrected me that you've already done so.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you just give us an overview?
The two changes that were made were first add
The red line.
advisory to make it clear that the HAC, their recommendation is advisory only. Ultimately, it's up to the Board of Supervisors. And that once they get an application or a letter seeking erection of a historic marker, they have 60 days in which to let you know that they're making a recommendation. Just so we can keep the process moving forward. Some alacrity.
Thank you.
You know what? Okay, the red line didn't address my question. My question was whether we need to include in here a provision that if 100 years from now, it turns out that some of the history that we honored is not something that the township wants to recognize anymore, that they would be permitted to take the sign
Section 2,
down, section 2.
the repealer.
No, that just repeals.
Who does it?
So I didn't know if we need to do that, but I think the concern was raised with within the committee that given some municipalities are a little bit, they may not be able to take down what now may be viewed as offensive, or for whatever reason, they don't want to honor that marker anymore. Would we be prohibited from taking would the later boards be prohibited from taking a marker down without express language permitting them to do so in the ordinance?
It is in the program guidelines.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is in the program guidelines, just so that when you answer it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought I read that somewhere.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
not
it's
in
in
the
the program. I
ordinance.
just didn't, I just didn't know whether it needed to also be expressed in the ordinance. And if it does, can we, when we move to advertise it with that language?
We can make a motion to advertise it.
With the,
With
with
the
the-
caveat that
the-
that change be made.
If necessary, but that
So the
was
repealer-
raised.
So the
at the
repealer
committee.
section doesn't actually give any future boards the ability to repeal.
It's
No,
just,
that's only there in the event some aspect of this becomes unconstitutional.
the ordinance itself.
The
Oh,
ordinance itself.
This is sort of, we want to keep the ordinance, but we might not like the marker that
I got you.
Right.
was designated 100 years ago.
So if I may, make a motion to authorize advertisement of this ordinance establishing the Lower Gwinnett Township Historic Markers Program to include language permitting the Board of Supervisors to repeal,
Is it repeal or revoke?
revoke, repeal.
Remove.
The proper language as named by our solicitor.
Delete.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. So that was the authorization to advertise.
The language in the program guidelines is retire, so you have your
Retire.
choice of RE
I
words.
I like that.
It's very non-judgmental.
Yeah, that is.
Retire signifies old.
Old means historic.
Even older than
Old means
historic.
so
Even
there you go.
even older than
It's
historic.
all coming around, full circle.
Next up, we have the authorization to advertise an ordinance crediting tax credits for volunteer firefighters. We have a memo included in our packet as well as the volunteer service credit program guidelines. Recommendation by staff. Well, it gives the background that in April, we discussed this moving forward with a credit incentive program for active volunteer firefighters of the Wissahickon Fire Company and the North Penn Volunteer Fire Company who are Lower Gwinnett residents. The draft ordinance authorized earned income tax credits up to $1,000 per year for active volunteers in either company. It also gives a summary of, the memo gives a summary of how the process would work in 2023 if the board approved the ordinance. Recommendation from staff was to authorize this advertisement. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? So it was included in our manager's report, so it is posted on our website as established as the ordinance as well as the guidelines. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the tax credits for volunteer firefighters. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion does carry. Thank you so much. Next up, we have considerations of the EAC program and expenditures. We have a memo from the Environmental Advisory Committee outlining recommendations for approval for a movie screening and a community composting presentation and tabling event. The events are outlined as part 1 and part 2 with attached budgets. Essentially, the first one is a presentation of a movie, Kiss the Ground. The second one is an introductory overview of a presentation in our boardroom around composting. And it has a curbside pickup of, it talks about food waste, kitchen counter waste, and it provided a budget. I do think we have members of our EAC who are here. If you guys want to come forward and give us a little bit of background.
Hi, I'm Monahan. I'm an EAC member. We've been discussing composting for quite some time among the EAC members. And we think this dovetails nicely, not only with Kiss the Ground movie, that deals specifically with improving soils to address climate change. And our goal is to show the movie prior to the composting event to get people engaged and so they understand what composting is, the importance of composting. And what we plan to do initially, the presentation was going to take place here. I was going to give a PowerPoint presentation, just providing an introduction about composting, what composting is, how to compost, the benefits, and how to use the compost. And then we were going to have a tabling event outside, 4 different stations with additional ways to compost. What we just found out from Sandy today that everything's going to be moving to Penland Woods, to the community center. So, and that's actually probably better because there are more tables and chairs and there's an overhang so we can set up the tables there. So what we're planning to do is have people talk about composting using tumblers, composting using stationary compost bins, also vermicomposting, which is the use of worms, and also curbside picking. So we have representatives from Back to Earth composting. So if people don't have property or the ability to compost on their grounds, you can actually contract with this company who will pick up your food scraps and recycle it and repurpose it through farms, local farms. So, so that's how that is playing out. The movie is going to be on June 12th. That will actually take place here. And then the compost event is going to be June 17th.
Okay. So that timeline is still accurate.
That's still accurate,
Okay.
correct. Does anyone have any questions?
So the first part is that there's a multitude of approvals, but just to go back a little bit. So the budget for the first event, I guess event 1 and event 2 are kind of together. Is that accurate?
Correct. I mean, there's
different
separate,
days,
but there's different days. And in order to show the movie Kiss the Ground, we have to purchase a license for $350. And that entitles the township to air that movie at this location multiple times over and over again. And then the second part is for what we propose is giving away 15 stationary compost bins as a raffle, 1 tumbler and 5 kitchen counter composting bins.
Okay.
So that's what the second budget piece is for those items. That the township is going to pick up all of the, once it gets ordered. I have a price locked in for half off of what was initially advertised through Wayfair. And so once that gets ordered, they're going to ship everything to Penland Woods. And then we're going to make sure, I'm going to specify in all the public works, if approved, that they have to take if they win the raffle, they must remove that piece, whatever they win that day, instead of having it sitting around, because that happened before with the rain barrels. So we want to make sure that everybody has their cars empty, clean, able to load. I'll have the dimensions included for each of the boxes, so.
The only question I had is there's a budget of a or, and so that's around the Penn State Extension speaker. Is it, we don't know yet?
They typically, sometimes they charge $50, but they accept donations as
Okay.
well. So I don't know if that's something that we can advertise at the station. I don't know if that's permitted by the township for our group.
What will we be advertising?
Like if they wanted to, if people, attendees wanted to give donations to Penn State Extension.
Oh.
I don't know if we're legally able to do that as the EAC to allow that.
I don't see why anybody couldn't give donations. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it would be, I guess, prudent for us to anticipate that fee rather than not, because we can always go down.
Absolutely, yes.
So the first recommendation is the licensure of the movie. It's the purchases of the items for the composting related demonstration.
Mhm.
And that's a total of $1,722.72.
And then if you add on the 50 to that, just in case.
Oh, no, I thought that was with it. That was with it, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the expenditure of $1,722.72 for the licensure of the Kiss the Ground movie and related composting demonstrations as outlined in our manager's report. Is there a
I
second?
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
So next up, we have the license to show the movie Winged Migration.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Did you want to come forward and explain the next movie, or it's pretty straightforward? It's the license to show the.
Kind of is in line with our Bird Town programming. It's a award-winning documentary about birds and migration patterns.
Can you use the microphone?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is this working? The showing of a winged migration is in keeping with our Bird Town program, we're Bird Town. And it's an award-winning documentary, as is Kiss the Ground. It's an incredible thing to watch. It's about birds, winged flight, and their movement across the planet, winter and summer. I know it does, if you're not a bird person, it might not sound so fascinating, but you can look at the trailer online and that will make you want to come and watch it. So that's it. Well, that's a good question. We're working on the date, tentatively now July 11th, which is a Tuesday night. Okay.
I don't think it's going to be July 11th.
That might be a problem.
Oh, that was one of the dates that Sandy said was open. We had originally asked about June 26th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm not sure. So.
It says to be
To
determined,
be
but we'll have it on
determined.
our website
Right.
and share the information online. So the EAC is just seeking permission to show the movie Winged Migration. I pronounced it wrong first. In the board meeting, this will be a part of a small movie series.
The series is the two movies that right now.
Okay, so the cost for the license is $250, and they're looking at several dates in June and July for the movie to be shown. Are there any questions from the board?
And both of the movies will be in this room, right? Yeah.
Any additional questions?
I just had one question for what was the revised date for the composting, the actual like giveaway?
The amount and
No, the date.
the date is going to be June 17th.
June, okay.
Is there additional question? You could just come up and just state your name and address.
My name's Sandy Silviger, and my question is, my calendar's pretty full, and when do we advertise these movies and where?
So we
'Cause
typically.
It's only 3 weeks away for that.
We typically put them on our website and I believe that we'd send out the e-blast, but I'll turn it over to Jamie because she sends out all of the communications.
So anything that we are advertising, we usually do an email blast. We also have an e-newsletter and that lists all of the upcoming events for the following month. Facebook, our Twitter, and then the EAC also has their own Facebook that they put their events on, and then we share it on our Facebook page as well.
So we have to wait till we get approval for the funding and stuff before we can publicize it. And then we're going to try to do it as broadly as possible. I know it's a little bit short notice. It was a lot of planning to get the composting thing together.
But, and I just want to make sure that I'm accurate. Once we purchase the license, we can show it as many times as we want to.
For the Kiss the Ground, we can. That's right.
But not for the second one?
I think
Not
that's
for-
just a singleton. Yeah,
Oh, Wings
the
Migration is
250.
just
Yeah.
one time for 250. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to come back before us just to set the date.
No, I wouldn't think so. It was the budget issues that we needed.
So put forward a motion to approve the purchase of the license for Winged Migration. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up is the creation of the Lower Gwinnett Going Green Award and related expenses. We did receive a memo from the EAC that outlines the request to establish the Going Green Award, who it will recognize, and the process for those recommendations. The estimated cost of administering the program is approximately $2,000. It does go through the process for creation, the requests, and attachment. I don't know if there's anything that you from the EAC want to share additionally. I do have a couple questions, but if you want to share anything about the program before we ask our questions.
I don't have anything in addition to what was in the packet. Just say that we've been talking about this program in one form or another since before we were in EAC. So when I started in this group in 2012, I think it was, we talked about some way to recognize efforts within the township to go a little bit above and beyond in the area of sustainability, recycling, whatever it might be. So we have somebody, a member of our EAC now, who has developed and implemented a similar kind of program in her professional life. That's Maureen Nunn. So she was ready to go with this. And so that's why we're finally able to talk about it now and propose something specific. So questions?
Just to clarify, and I'm just going to say the board purpose is to recognize sustainability initiatives that improve or protect the environment and our natural resources, to raise awareness about important environmental issues. In the areas of focus would include energy, water, sustainable land practices, waste minimization, community outreach and betterment. And the proposed goal is to recognize someone doing right. Award eligibility is any resident, business group, organization, nonprofit, educational institution, or other entity located in Lower Gwinnett that has taken positive steps to improve or protect the environment. So then again, it outlines the process and it outlines the budget. I think the only question I had around this was the nomination period and the proposed application. Is it possible for all of this to be done electronically without sending out postcards or additional mailings? And I'm only just thinking about the trees and the additional postcards. I don't know if that was considered and it was seen as not an effective way to communicate, but I guess that's really what my question is around.
I think that it is not the easiest way to get to the full range of people that we'd be interested in, like the businesses, for example, and the schools and organizations might or might not be getting these email blasts. I think with the tree giveaway, we learned that people who didn't get the postcards that we sent out felt like they hadn't gotten enough notice, even though there had been other forms of publicity. So at least maybe in this first time, to make people aware that it's a program that we're initiating and that it will presumably take place if it's successful. every year at about the same time, maybe we won't need to do it again. Certainly understand your concern with the trees. I think we've had some trouble getting people's attention just through the virtual ways of communicating. So that's why we're proposing this.
And will the paper mailings go out to, it will be all residents and all businesses, or?
Everybody on the mailing list, so there's like
Okay.
1,600, I can't remember the number.
But that wouldn't include the businesses. I think that's just residents.
Yeah.
Well,
Our current mailing list for the newsletter, the paper newsletter that goes out is residential. And then we take like stacks of them to the retirement communities. But it's not business. We don't send it out to businesses, not on the list.
well,
The Lower Gwinnett Business Association just struck up a partnership with the Montgomery County Chamber. There's sure a way.
I hope there's a
Through
way.
Those avenues to the businesses.
So, I mean, we had understood when we asked for the information about how many and could we get the addresses that whatever the mailing list was that the township had would cover everybody we want. So now this is news to me that it wouldn't cover the businesses, but we have to find a way.
Yeah.
Also the school district, because there may be student groups that would be eligible, the universities, et cetera. Okay, so that, I don't know, I guess that might affect the budget because we just had an estimate for the number of mailings for that mailing list.
Yeah, so the estimated budget included the plaques,
Right.
postcards, mailing service, and postage. And so when you're talking about a newsletter, you're not talking about a separate newsletter, you're just talking about inclusion into the newsletter. Okay.
Right.
Is
So-
there a way that we can authorize, like, we can authorize up to a certain amount, but then maybe that way you guys can revisit like who you want to send the paper mailings to, because it might not be necessary with the paper newsletter going to folks to send it to residents. Maybe it is just, I mean, I'm not, but it is, it would be important to send it, I think, to the businesses, like, because they're probably not following us on social media or visiting our website or tuning into our meetings.
Right.
So that might be a good way to target them by paper and.
The only question is that the submission deadline or the nomination deadline, I'm sorry, is September 15th. I
Oh, the
believe
paper
our
newsletters.
next newsletter is not going to go out
Gotcha.
prior to that.
Okay.
So it wouldn't even necessarily be able to be included in our winter newsletter because
Right.
your deadline is September 15th.
So maybe then
Right.
you would need the paper mailings. Yeah.
Right, we would
Okay.
need that. I mean,
Unless you move the deadline back.
Labor Day.
Is it
it's
Labor Day?
still a little short, still a little short lead time.
That's pretty close.
I was going to respond to what you said, but now I forget what it was.
Is it possible for you to alter
Businesses?
your deadline?
Oh, the
the
deadline.
submission
So it kind of depends on when we want to do the presentation. We were thinking maybe at the volunteer appreciation night would be because it's already an event that would be amenable to a presentation. And so.
But we could always present here at a board meeting.
That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, we could consider moving that if that makes sense with the mailing and the newsletter.
Just to kind of. give
Make
you
sure
better
everybody has
notice
time.
to- yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Since it is a new program, you wouldn't want to rush.
right.
And we've got postcards made up. The various businesses along the pipe more than likely will let you put them on their counters. Like I know Penny at Village Pharmacy would be okay with that. You know, the restaurants, you probably get a somewhat cooperation.
Right. We're just reflecting off of the tree giveaway thing, which is a little bit different because it only went to residents. And people complained afterwards, like they didn't get the postcards in time, they felt, to sign up. And, but it had also been publicized on the website and in the e-news and stuff like that. And they didn't feel
Yeah.
like they had known
You're
about
trying to
it.
figure out how to do it better.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be one.
Sure. If it's just one, then we won't worry about it.
So we have before us two estimates of a proposed budget. One, the low end would be 1954.97, and the high end would be 2021.95. 97. So I would like to make a motion. I think that you could satisfy the initiation of this program and potential addition of businesses. Would $2,500 be sufficient? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve $2,500 to establish the creation of the Lower Gwinnett Going Green Award and related expenses. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up is a resolution designating a township applicant agent to close out the COVID-19 funding. This is just pretty straightforward. We have to designate an agent. I don't know, Mimi, if you want to give any background.
This is truly is a grant we actually thought we had already closed out, and DEP has come back saying, no, we need yet another form, except the previous manager is still the agent. So we just need to get this information to DEP so that we can send them the other piece of paper they need for a grant we've already gotten. And this is from the COVID money from originally.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution designating a township applicant agent, which is our township manager, Mimi Cleason, to close out the COVID-19 funding. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the approval of Lower Gwinnett Township cafeteria plan for optional employee benefits. This is very detailed and included in our manager's report. It kind of amends and reinstates the plan effective April 1st, 2023. It permits eligible employees to pay their portion of the premium cost for benefits at a pre-tax salary reduction rate and make contributions on a pre-tax salary reduction basis to a health savings account. The plan is intended to qualify as a cafeteria plan under Section 125 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 and shall be interpreted to accomplish that objective. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I would like to make a motion to approve the Lower Gwinnett Township cafeteria plan for optional employee benefits. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the consideration of the agreement with the Econ Partners for Grant Administration. Lower Gwinnett Township did receive a RACP award, and the primary purpose of the attached agreement is for Econ Partners to assist the township with the administration of that RACP grant for the Public Works facility. If the township requests, Econ Partners may also assist with the grant application or administration, but will not do that on a regular basis. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement for grant assistance with Econ Partners. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up is a review of financials year-to-date and our balance sheet. Are there any questions from the board?
Beautiful report.
It was beautiful, Linda. I do enjoy.
Nice getting a report.
Seeing no questions from the board, we'll move next to the approval of our invoice history for April 2023. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoice history for April 2023. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion does carry. Next up is the approval of the minutes from our May 9th, 2023 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Yes.
Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our May 9th, 2023 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion does carry. Next up is supervisor liaison reports, which I am going to make a motion to table until our next June meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion does carry. Next up is staff updates. Any staff have any updates?
I think you have listed on there pedestrian improvements by the school. There's some simple things that we're going to try to take care of, talking with the chief. There's crosswalks at Houston and Knight that are just plain painted crosswalks, 2 lines. We're going to put thermoplastic down and make them the they stand out a little more. If you see the rectangles up by the school, they have them. Down at that intersection, we just match that. Thermoplastic lasts much better, stays visible longer than regular paint. So we'll have that done before school starts again in the fall. So that's just a simple thing. we're
That's
doing
awesome,
there.
Fred.
That was
That's
something that was
awesome.
brought up in
Yeah.
our
Thank
And-
you.
meeting,
yeah,
so thank you.
And we'll look at other simple things we could do. There's signs that we're gonna put up that have the yield to pedestrian in the crosswalk that point out that there's a crosswalk there,
Mhm.
crosswalk ahead. So we'll get them all ordered and have them all in place before school starts again.
Awesome.
Thank you, Fred.
Sometimes folks just need a lot of reminders that
Yeah,
there's little
it-
kids
it-
running
It
around.
can't hurt, and
Yeah.
the newness of it will certainly draw attention to it right away, so.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
We're also going to change the color of the ramps of the speed humps there. That was one of Mr. Tolliver's recommendations,
Mhm.
that we, it's all white all the way through. We're going to probably go back to the yellow that was there
On
before.
the speed hump, okay.
We did purchase, I don't think it came in yet, but we got Mr. Tolliver his handheld lighted stop sign.
Cool.
And he was the most popular figure last month on our Facebook page for his birthday.
For his
So the police went down and gave him a gift certificate, and he got a lot of positive comments. He's very well liked.
That's
We all do
great.
love
Thank
Mr.
you, Chief.
Tolliver. Are there any additional staff updates? Seeing none, supervisor comments. Kathy?
Just one, I'd like to congratulate Chief Kenny and the police department for getting the repeat accreditation. I think that's a great accomplishment. And, I'd like to echo remarks made earlier, thanking you and the rest of the police force for all you do for the community. I think it's a great reflection on the township. So thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
You get a rounding second from me on that. Good job. That's all I have.
Dean?
I will third that. Thank you, Chief, and to our police and to Townie for putting on that awesome event. The weather didn't hold anyone back from coming out, so I was sad I couldn't be there. That was great. Also want to thank everybody who came out, whether you live here or not, in support of our Pride Month resolution. I think that means a lot to a lot of folks. And happy Memorial Day to everybody. Enjoy the holiday weekend and just take a moment to please remember why we have the holiday for all of our fallen heroes. I got.
Mike?
I echo everyone's comments. Thank you, Chief and the police. And I thought tonight was a real good example of democracy. We can disagree, but at the end of the day, we're all citizens of Lower Gwinnett and Americans, and we can agree to disagree, but we can do it respectfully.
I want to echo, I think what everyone has kind of already said, that we appreciate our police tremendously, our chief for leading our police, and the community engagement that has recently kind of risen out of all of that. I appreciate it tremendously. Unfortunately, the rain and prior commitments, I wasn't able to come out and touch a truck, but I will be there next time, and hopefully I will see the helicopter. I also want to thank everybody that came out and participated in our conversation around the pride flag raising. I didn't anticipate so much engagement since this is our third year, but I do appreciate the discourse, and I appreciate hearing from everyone and them taking the time out to speak passionately about things that they care about. I often have, I spoke last time about, the difference, I guess, around equity inclusion and how us raising the flag this year was about making sure that the young individuals in our community know that this is their community, that they're represented, that they are included. And I'm kind of reminded of something that I've heard very recently. It's been repeated and echoed in my mind that sometimes when you come from a place of privilege, equity can feel like oppression, but really it's just equity. And so we have to kind of take all of that into consideration from our vantage point as we think about and address and look at and engage in different opportunities. I also want to make sure that we all enjoy a Memorial Day and focus on the reason for the holiday, remembering all of those that sacrificed their lives for our country. And be safe this Memorial Day weekend. With that, I want to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Leave, we have to sign stuff. Don't leave, we have to sign stuff.